Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to TVP World. You're watching another edition of Press Corner. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and this is the program where we round up some of the more interesting headlines of the week, where we discuss with fellow journalists, panelists, and other esteemed guests. Now, here on Press Corner, we celebrate the privilege of a free press by having a panel of diverse opinions, and we'll let you be the judge. Now, without further ado, let's introduce our panelists. Starting here, Alexandra Karsinka, journalist and director of Ringer Axel Springer Foundation. We have Chris Gotowski, geopolitical expert from Collegium Civitas.
Morning.
And here we have Mr. Łukasz Wojciecha, journalist from the Deutsche magazine, and Bogusław Hrabota, editor-in-chief of Rzeczpospolita. Hello, guys, and welcome to this edition of Press Corner.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
All right, so first thing on the agenda that we're going to be talking about today is the 25th meeting of the Ramstein meeting. Now, this is perhaps touted as probably the last one, seeing the geopolitical situation in the United States. But is that going to be the case, and what is the importance of this meeting? Let's take a look at a report to find out more, and we'll see you on the other side.
Less than 2 weeks away from Donald Trump's inauguration, defense ministers from nearly 50 countries convened at Ramstein Air Base in Germany on Thursday for the 25th meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group, one that may very well be the last.
It's clear that a new chapter starts for Europe and the entire world just 11 days from now, at a time when we have to cooperate even more, rely on one another even more, and achieve even greater results together.
The meeting was a chance for the outgoing Biden administration to offer Ukraine a final boost in the form of a new aid package before Trump takes over the White House.
We must not let up, and that's why I'm announcing today another presidential drawdown authority package valued at $500 million. It includes additional missiles for Ukrainian air defense, more ammunition, more air-to-ground munitions, and other equipment to support Ukraine's F-16s.
Trump, set to begin his second term as US president on January 20th, has long been vocal about the need to cut down on US support for Ukraine, a possibility the European allies are now prepared for.
Ukraine needs our support, and it can rely on Germany, and it will continue to need a Ramstein format for this. Will there be a willingness to continue on the part of the new US administration? We are preparing for the continuation of this leading role of the United States. Without it, it will be very difficult to achieve such capacities in this format.
Kyiv's allies are preparing Ukraine for what seems to be imminent: peace talks with Russia.
We have to bring Ukraine in the best possible position that one day, when talks would start, at the initiative of Ukraine on how to solve this conflict, that they are in the best possible position to do that.
We must bear in mind that the negotiation process is already on. A new president, still President-elect Donald Trump, is planning to have negotiation between Russia and Ukraine. And I'm afraid to say that most likely Ukraine will have to give away some of its territory.
Experts seem to agree that Trump's recent promise to end the war within 6 months would have to include territorial concessions. According to a recent poll, nearly 2 in 5 Ukrainians are open to conceding some territory while preserving independence in order to end the war as soon as possible.
All right, so the situation seems pretty dynamic. Let's start with you, Alexandra. Do you think that this will be the last time that this meeting takes place? Or, well, some people are actually quite confident that the Ramstein meeting is still going to be very important in carrying out, well, making sure that the negotiation goes in the way of Ukraine's best interest?
It might be the end of this format, but it definitely won't be the end of the support for Ukraine from the European countries. And we've seen this in the material, but also we heard it from probably all top European leaders and defense ministers that, of course, they want United States in the format. This Ramstein group was actually crucial to coordinate support, military support for fighting Ukraine. And we heard Polish defense minister, but we also heard German defense minister Pistorius, but also Kaja Kallas, who is chief of international foreign policy of EU. And she says very clearly that we want US leading the group, but if not, if Mr. Trump, if President Trump will pull out from the format, the big countries, all European countries, are planning to create another format to support Ukraine further on. So I believe it's not at the end. Of course, this is true, that without the United States, it will be much more difficult to provide the same amount of financial and military support. But especially in this moment, is a very crucial moment in the war, probably very end to some kind of ceasefire. This support of European leaders means also, this is also kind of a tipping point. It might help to negotiate better peace for Ukraine.
Right. Chris, do you think that European nations are indeed ready to carry on that burden? With any chart that I've seen when it comes to military support, support from the U.S. is very outsized compared to even all the European nations put together.
I agree exactly what you said, that I think without the United States, this would be very, very difficult, to be honest. That being said, of course, a lot of the countries in the European Union have been stepping up. We have to say that, right? But without the United States support, this will be severely diminished. So the United States is the only country, I believe, that could really, really push forward helping Ukraine militarily. I don't see the Germans, really. I don't see the UK. In even countries like Poland, the Baltic states, Scandinavian countries, which have been doing really a lot, they've been pushing above their weight. They can't go forward without the United States, in my opinion. So all eyes are on the United States. We have, over just a week before Trump is going to be inaugurated. And that's going to be the main thing, because Trump is a loose cannon. We don't know what he's going to do. We have to bear in mind, though, that under Trump, he did actually support Ukraine with lethal weapons. And a lot of people didn't expect that. So we have to also bear in mind that as well.
Right, I think that's a very good point. A lot of people are looking into the incoming Trump administration almost with a little bit of doom and gloom. But at the same time, we do see signs that Trump have been relatively supportive of Ukraine in the last time around. Łukasz, do you think that the incoming Trump administration will actually have some decisions that maybe benefits not just this format, but the defense of Ukraine in general?
Well, the ultimate goal of Mr. Trump seems to be to end the war as soon as possible. To end the war, we have to have negotiations. To have negotiations, we have to have two parts sitting at the table. And so we have, or Ukraine and the US, has somehow to persuade Russia to sit down at the table. And how do you do that? You do that by strengthening the other part. Because now the situation is such that Ukraine is in fact losing. Russia is making very slow but steady progress in this war. So you have to balance the forces. The balance of forces must be such that Russia thinks that it's also in its interest to sit down at the table and have negotiations. It's very interesting and important what Mr. Rutte said in the video, and I would like just to remind that Mr. Rutte became Secretary General of NATO because of his very good contacts with Washington. Yeah. So when he says that we have to strengthen Ukraine before negotiations begin, it's very important, and it is what I think the new US administration will try to do. And there is also one more factor at work here, which is the sentiment of Ukrainian society. We will have on Monday in the new edition of Do Rzeczy a very interesting piece by Maciej Pieczyński, who is our very good expert on Russia and on Ukraine, about how Ukrainian society is more and more willing to concede some land and also more and more discouraged towards continuation of the war. So it's also a very important factor here at play.
All right. Bogusław, like we just mentioned here, Trump does want to get this deal done as soon as possible. But do you think by holding this position, by being such willing to kind of negotiate, he put his cards on the table already and given a little bit less space to maneuver?
I think that we have completely no idea about the future scenarios in of this war. You know, we got some declarations, some expectations, some statements, but the future comes, and until the moment it will be coming, we have no idea. We can analyze some facts, and first fact, Ukraine desperately needs support. That's one, with no question. Yeah? Another thing is that we must be ready for new scenarios. There's, for example, for new formats for, discussing the future of Ukraine and for support. I think that from the point of view of Polish government, nothing changes. We'll keep our position on this. From the point of view of international reality, our effort, Warsaw effort, Polish effort will be much stronger as an advocate of Ukraine. So what I suggest, just wait a couple of weeks. Donald Trump definitely wants to finish the war. And he said it, I can do it one day, in 24 hours. Now his representative, General Kellogg, says it needs 100 days to finish it up. A ceasefire, probably, as a turning point. But from point of view of Warsaw, our effort in supporting Ukraine will be much stronger. That's for sure.
Łukasz, like Chris just mentioned earlier, perhaps this is going to be a very big burden on a European part if U.S. does diminish its support for Ukraine. Do you think that there will be the political will to see that through, seeing that, like you mentioned, also there's already a little bit of a waning support and will to keep this fight going, and we already see a lot of European nations within it falling apart when it comes to this coalition. A lot of it has to do with foreign policies, economy. Do you think that the stance for this continued support will garner enough support within its population?
Well, it's the question of two things. First, very real and concrete capabilities of the EU countries. And on this point, I would add, or rather perhaps to some extent disagree with Bogusław, who says that Poland will be supporting Ukraine as much as possible. Well, as much as possible seems definitely not in the sphere of concrete donations as far as military equipment is concerned, because we don't have any more equipment. That's quite clear. And this is also the situation of many of the other EU countries, because the military industry has its limitations. So we as EU are just not able to be as generous as the US is. That is the first question. The other question is, of course, the sentiment of European nations. And for example, in Poland, it's very unpopular to speak about Polish soldiers participating in holding up the armistice line or demarcation line or whatever it will be in Ukraine. This is the French idea, definitely, but I think that there are many countries in Europe in which it will not be very popular to send their soldiers to Ukraine. So yes, I think Ukraine will have problems with that.
Right.
Also, maybe I would add that Kaja Kallas said, and many other European politicians try to remind to the new administration that it is not in United States' interest to have Russia as the biggest power in the region. So actually, and it's always been the priority of American foreign policy to contain Russia.
Exactly.
So I don't think that the new administration is totally, like they are aliens, and there are people who understand international policy, and this is like a cornerstone, the American policy in Europe. So I believe what Europeans say, of course, Trump, his approach is very transactional. He probably pushes on many fronts to buy more gas from United States, to buy more equipment. But also we have to remember that on other side, we are aligned in the common interest.
I would like to... Go ahead.
To clarify my point of view, I said about Polish efforts. I thought about the political level. Okay. Because what about weapons? We know that it's not not possible now just to deliver more weapons from our storages. Yeah, but I think just discussing a little bit with Łukasz, I think that Polish troops will be there in a ceasefire zone for sure. It doesn't come from France. It comes from Trump, from White House. And he said that probably European troops should countries first should take responsibility over the peace process
and he
in
mentioned
Ukraine.
Poland. He mentioned Poland.
And he mentioned Poland. And I think that we should be ready for such situation that Polish troops will be there in the zone in the future. So telling today that it's not possible and Polish public opinion is not ready for it, that's a mistake. I think that
it's not ready.
Yeah. So let's do everything to be ready for this because it will happen.
It will happen very soon. Yeah. I just wanted to add something a little bit earlier that we have to also bear in mind that Trump doesn't actually want to come out as a loser. Remember? Right, yeah. He was very critical actually what happened with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, even though ironically Trump actually instigated the
But he has 4 years.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. It's true. Yeah. But nonetheless, he doesn't want to be seen as the loser on his watch, that Ukraine would fall, there would be a complete catastrophe in Europe because of him. The blame would come on him for the most part too as well. So we have to also bear in mind that Trump will, I think, continue to support Ukraine. He's been giving some hints recently, right? Remember initially he said that one day it's going to be over before he's president.
Yeah.
During his term when he's going to be president-elect, he's going to finish the war. Then when he's going to be president one day, now 3 months, now they're saying even longer, right. He's suggesting, and he's saying that he's actually going to support Ukraine as well. So we don't know. Like I said earlier, he's a loose cannon. We're going to have to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks more. We'll see what his plan's going to be for Ukraine. But I have a feeling it's not going to be as bad as people thought a few weeks ago.
Just one remark, may I?
Right. Sure.
One remark. I think that it's not, this is my opinion, it will not be a good thing to have Polish soldiers in Ukraine on the demarcation line. This is my opinion. But I also think that there will be an enormous pressure from the United States to make Poland participate. Let's see what happened with Mr. Netanyahu and International Criminal Court. This was also an effect, the Polish stance on this, on his visit, which will not come to effect, right. Actually. But it was also a result of American pressure.
Right. So we'll have to see how the situation develops and whether or not the European nations can actually leverage Trump's attitude of not wanting to lose to kind of add into this equation. In the meantime, we are going to move on to our next topic. We're looking at the situation in Slovakia, where the feud between Fico and the halt of Ukrainian gas pipeline transiting of Russian gas is creating a little bit of an issue. Let's take a look at our report to find out more, and we'll see you on the other side.
On Thursday, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico announced that the country is ready to deploy a range of political and economic sanctions against Ukraine to force it to ship Russian gas to the European Union.
So, what can we do? First, we can stop all humanitarian aid. The second option is to significantly reduce or even completely withdraw various benefits that citizens of Ukraine receive on the territory of the Slovak Republic. Yes, someone may say that what I am saying now is cruel, but what Zelensky is doing to us and what he is doing to the European Union is also cruel.
Fico claims that his government will be forced to take action, as it stands to miss out on as much as 500 million euros in transit fees it previously earned by pumping the gas to neighboring countries like Czechia and Hungary. The announcement sparked a fresh wave of protests against Fico's pro-Russian policies.
The mafia is ruling us here, and I want to give a message from Milan Kňazek that Smer is not a party but a criminal organization. This must be realized, and we came to fight for democracy, truth and the rule of law. We've had the Russians here since '68, and we know what the Russians did to us, and these Russian minions are trying to drag us back in.
In an exclusive interview for TVP World given as the protest was underway, media and election expert Rastok Hužel shared his key observations.
Today's demonstrations are a response to a growing dissatisfaction with the administration led by Robert Fico. Protesters here are expressing deep concerns about what they see as the government's alignment with Russia and its perceived erosion of democratic principles.
In December, Fico visited Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow, allegedly to discuss energy issues after Ukraine chose not to extend its visa transit agreement with Russia. Several weeks later, during his Friday address at the Slovak National Council, he implied continued ties with Russia. Fico stated that his discussions with Putin confirmed Russian Gazprom's existing obligation to deliver gas to Slovakia, possibly via the southern route.
I do not even have to go to Moscow to fight for gas, I do not even have to go to Brussels to fight for gas, and I have to sit at home because you love President Zelensky. I do not love him. I think he is betraying Europe and making the European Union make a big mistake by getting away with everything.
Fico's pro-Russian stance has repeatedly met with protests throughout the country, and the current wave of dissent is unlikely to be the last one.
Now, these are some very strong statements made by the Slovakian Prime Minister. And of course, first, it's met with a lot of strong reactions. People are feeling appalled that he would pull humanitarian aid. But I want to dive a little bit deeper into the topic of this. This, of course, is a reaction as to, well, their long-term reliance on Russian fuel and now that being taken away. But is there any way that we can actually come to a negotiation table, or at least have some way to ramificate the energy situation in Slovakia so that, well, they don't have Russia as their only pipeline, that's so to speak, Mr. Bogoslav?
Thank God Slovakia is not a superpower. So that's first. And sanctions are done by EU, not by Slovakia itself. So Russia will be limited in sanctions by other countries of EU. That's another point. And in a case of, stopping transfer from Slovakia into Ukraine, we have two big channels. One is in Poland, in Rzeszów, in Jasionka, that transfers, I don't know how many, 65% of delivery for fighting country of Ukraine. And in another is Romania. So Slovakia is not a key country for transfer of and delivery of fuel and humanitarian aid, etc., to Ukraine. On the other hand, I think that Fico is revolting his own country because he has a support of, let's say, part of society, and the other part is on streets. So it's very risky for him from the point of view of local politics. And I had an announcement from his government that he goes to Brussels just trying to solve a problem. So he relies on union on the other hand. So there is a kind of energetical solidarity in Europe today. So if a country really needs support in gas, in electricity, fuel, etc., we can deliver. And such solutions are under consideration of Polish government too, just to resend some of our gas and no problem with electricity, gas to Slovakia. So he's not alone. He's not just, it's not true that the only way to Slovakia to survive in the winter is Mr. Putin. That's not true, definitely.
Yeah, you mentioned solidarity. And, 2 points. I agree with you in general terms, but I think 2 points. First of all, we have to remember who Fico is. He is a businessman, very rich, populist, pro-Russian populist, who during his previous term destroyed many instruments of democracy. And we have to remember what kind of policy he implemented, crushing down NGOs and other groups, also journalists and freedom of speech in Slovakia. I have to remind you that during his last term, there was a killing of an investigative journalist, Jan Kuciak, who used to be a colleague of mine working in the same company. He was shot dead in his own house with his girlfriend who was pregnant. And this kind of murder of the investigative journalist does not happen in the European Union. It happens in Russia. It happens in autocracies. So we have to remember who we're dealing with. And secondly, I think his visit to Moscow and meeting Putin is really, really bad sign, because it shows that the unity that European Union shown at the beginning of the war with Russia, when Russia invaded Ukraine, is start to crumble. Because what Putin did not expect, such a solidarity, such a unity, such support, very heavy sanction, very heavy military support. And the approach to Putin was, he is an aggressor, he is our foe, he is a leader that we are not talking to. And really this visit was like a rare occasion. Only Orban in the recent year visited Moscow and Fico. as I recall, only Olaf Scholz called him and was very criticized inside Germany. So I think it's really a bad sign that Fico is shaking hands with Putin in Moscow, because this is kind of sign that we have a diplomatic ties, and this is not a war criminal who is actually a politician we are dealing with. So I really, really think it's lamentable and kind of dismantles this European solidarity and unity.
This picture of them shaking hands will be the symbol of Fico for decades. It will be kind of a problem for his politics next seasons, I think.
Like Mr. Tusk shaking hands with Mr. Putin.
In totally different situation.
Right. Of course.
But I would
completely
have to,
incomparable.
I would just say one thing, though, that we keep talking about Slovakia, that they're dealing with Russia, and of course, from a PR image for the European Union, from the West, it looks awful, right? But on the other hand, as was said earlier, Slovakia is a very small country, very weak economy. They're dependent on the European Union. So when they say that they're going to lose 500 million in transit fees, that's a drop in the bucket of water compared to what the European Union gives Slovakia. It's a joke. So I think we shouldn't take that too seriously. But of course, the pattern is a little bit worrying. We have Hungary, we have Slovakia. We'll see what happens in Austria, right?
Exactly.
So that's the main issue here too.
Well, first of all, you just read my mind, because that's exactly what I was hoping to help unpack. Because like Mr. Bosworth mentioned that. Well, Slovakia is not actually the most important transit route to really help out Ukraine. However,
10 to 15% of
it's nothing really significant
from Slovakia. The rest comes from Romania and Poland.
Well, if we speak about what Slovakia under Fico is, we have to keep in mind what happens in Poland, because you said about blocking independent media. We have just had a Polish minister, Mr. Gawkowski, threatening to block one of the Polish most popular information TVs because of criticizing Mr. Owsiak. So I don't know if we are so far from Slovakia, but
we are so far.
We are far. We're very, very far.
Yes.
Nobody kills Germany.
We are also speaking about blocking free speech in Europe by blocking X, for example. So I don't know if we are so far. Nevertheless, as far as Slovakia is concerned, Fico is playing the same game as Zelensky has been playing. Zelensky is a very brutal leader who can be very blunt, who can be very rude towards other leaders, and Fico speaks his language. This is just exactly his language. This is Ukrainian language. And what Ukraine does to Slovakia is a great problem as far as Slovakia energy market and energy supplies are concerned. So this is what Fico is trying to fix. And as far as his visit in Moscow is concerned, well, this is politics. In a couple of months, probably we will have other European leaders shaking hands with Mr. Putin, because negotiations will begin. So this is politics. Politics is sometimes not really very nice, doesn't look good, but this is politics. It's a hard game.
All right, so I feel like there's a lot of pushback on that statement, so let's unpack it a little bit, because I think there's also this balancing of pragmatical politics with what we really want to see. And I do see that there's probably some valid points when it comes to the situation in Slovakia. We can be here and wag fingers at them all day, but the reality is they are going to be losing out on a very large share of revenue. And is there any way that European allies will be able to kind of help smooth out at least the situation there in order to kind of draw them back into the fold?
You have an European
of course. No problem at all. We have 3 years of that. And,
we have a European pipeline system, and I think it's not a problem just to stay with allies, not to just to threaten allies that Fico does. And coming to what Lukasz said, Slovakian and Ukrainian geopolitical situation is a bit different. So
one country's in war, right?
Right. I mean, European leader as Fico with a guy in the war. I mean, Mr. Zelensky, and of course, rhetoric is just similar. But I mean, geopolitical situation is completely different. And
geopolitical
the Ukrainian leader has completely different circumstances of his environment and political and geopolitical.
I mean, existential threat.
I mean, Mr. Zelensky was also on a couple of occasions was very rude towards Polish politicians and Polish nation.
That's we know.
So I wouldn't justify it.
But I would like to point out that solidarity as instrument of politics in European Union between or among members of European Union should be #1 value. not just contesting.
But this is also a question of price. I mean, perhaps Slovakia can be supplied from other directions, but this is the question of price. For how much? What the price will be? What the pressure will be exerted on Mr. Fico?
Right.
Exerted on Mr. Fico, political pressure exerted on him in exchange for supplies from other directions, because I'm quite sure that European Union, who dislikes Fico almost as much as it dislikes Mr. Orban, will not be very willing just to pump gas to Slovakia just like that. There will have to be some conditions.
What's the position of Mr. Kaczynski, a kind of maybe not the twin of Mr. Fico, but comes from the same direction of politics? We as Poland were able just to quit Russian gas,
no problem,
and oil, for some. We need some time, of course, for it, But finally, we just completely changed the sources of delivery. So it's possible also for small countries,
look at the
population
map. Look at the map. Map of pipelines and ports and so on and so on. It's not easy done in Slovakia. Just like in Hungary.
Price. Let's talk about price. Let's talk about price. I remember having the same conversation last year in Davos during World Economic Forum. Two business people approached me, one from France, one from Belgium, I think, and they say, you know, this war is terrible. We were talking on a cocktail party, and they were, yes, but Europe is paying the highest price. We, business people, we are paying the highest price. And I said, sorry, gentlemen, but I think that European soldiers are paying the highest price. They pay the high price.
Ukrainians are paying the highest price.
The highest price in blood.
They
are dying.
That is moving, but that is not politics.
Yes, and we had, and they like, you know, they said thank you, and left the room. So I think, you know, they are fighting for their independence. They are fighting for their freedom. They've been attacked unlawfully by the Putin, and I hope we agree on this.
This is not real politics. This is sentimental blah blah blah.
Fight right now, right?
This is true. This is facts.
No,
Ukraine
this is not a realistic viewpoint on politics.
Yeah, but I think Łukasz is making the point that while that is a very rhetorically sound, and I think anyone with a good conscience would side with the Ukrainian soldiers, those that are paying with the ultimate price, it is very hard to then convince the people in Slovakia that is actually paying out of their pockets to kind of relate to the situation going on in the battlefield. So is there any way to kind of smooth this gap?
I just have to say, first of all, we have to remember that the idea was to get off of Russian gas from the beginning, right? So that's point number one. Number two, like I said earlier, first of all, European Union can actually help Slovakia financially. It has
by American gas.
Exactly. There's so many different options, right? So regarding with gas and financially
Norway.
too. So Norway, another pipeline from Norway. So the list goes on and on and on.
To the south, it's not a problem to extend this pipe just to Slovakia.
And if you pay higher price, then you actually pay for your sovereignty, for your freedom, for security. And this is what we should be telling people in Europe. By supporting Ukraine, a bigger picture and real politics is they are paying the price for us because they are protecting our security.
Our freedom
and security and
independence. Say
independence.
to people who can't afford their gas and heating.
Yeah,
they will certainly be delighted.
Gas.
This is populist argument.
No, this is not. This is very real.
Yes, but
you are probably a rich person.
No, I am not. But
and
you know what?
You can afford that. But there are many people in Slovakia and in Poland who cannot.
Instruments.
The war with Russia will cost them more.
These are our money. These are our money. Taxes.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, but these taxes are coming from richer people like Ola. Yes,
I become another
from poor people. Cannot buy gas.
It comes from everyone.
So
this is public money.
Instruments of support for these people who are not able to buy, gas in a high prices. Really, yeah.
This is from my point of view, it's very arrogant. In fact, to speak to ordinary people like that. Pay the higher price because Ukrainian soldiers are fighting for their freedom. What should people care? I mean, in Slovakia and anywhere else.
Because they could be next. They could be next. That's
exactly.
But this is their judgment. If they elect Smer and if they elect Fico because he says what he's been saying, this means that they prefer other point of view than yours.
They prefer Russia to be in Slovakia now.
This is,
I don't think so.
Perhaps this is their choice.
I don't think so.
They choose a concrete line of politics towards Russia and towards Europe. This is their choice. This is democracy. I know you may not like democratic choice if it's not.
Oh, I do.
If it's not as you would like it to be, but this is democracy.
We'll see what will happen with Fico next season. I think that he will lose power because of this. What he do now.
Yeah, but I think the argument here is perhaps for countries that are more wealthier, better off, it's easier to kind of pay the upfront price. It's the same discussion when we talk about EVs, where a lot of people are saying that eventually you actually save money on gas, but this initial investment might be a little bit too hefty for people with a lesser income to pay. And so perhaps there's this part of the Slovakian society that cannot afford to pay this price right now, that kind of ultimately doesn't really have a choice but to lean into a certain direction. Is there any way, like politically, that either be it the Slovakian government out of its own will or the European Union can help alleviate this upfront cost, and then we can probably talk about whether or not this is a better long-term investment?
This is what European Union is about, actually, to be united, to have better negotiating position with Russia or with Trump, doesn't matter. We are one of the richest region in Europe, one of the richest organization, union of countries in the world. And this is about security and about unity. And if European Union helps each other, we saw this working during pandemics when Brussels could buy and supply Europeans with vaccines for lower prices just because we were the bigger player on the market.
Now there is a big affair about those vaccines, which were not necessary, in fact.
They were.
And then investigation.
I mean, we are not experts here, but I believe experts, and the vaccine saves millions of lives. So this is where what I believe experts, medical experts and professors and universities.
There is an investigation, I remind you, about that.
Yeah, but
the European Union bought definitely
let's not start talking about vaccines now.
Pieces of vaccines.
I mean, there's of course two sides of the argument on that one, but we're veering a little bit away from going into the logistics and the nitty-gritty of things. And unfortunately, with this kind of stuff, how to execute it is also another thing that needs to be discussed. But before that, I'm also wondering, like, if there is a more robust way, let's say, for the European Union countries, those that can afford it, to help alleviate the cost for people who cannot afford it. Will you then be in favor of such measures?
Well, as I said, the European Union, I mean Brussels, I mean European Commission will definitely use, just like it did with Polish recovery plan, use this opportunity to exert pressure on the governments that it doesn't like, on that it thinks that should be changed. There was a very interesting conversation a couple of days ago with Thierry Breton, the former French commissioner, who said that if the result of the elections in Germany is not what we want it to be, we will change it as we did in Romania. So this is, in my opinion, what might happen with this issue too. So it's, in fact, for Fico, it might be an unacceptable plan.
Do you think there is any validity to that? Perhaps there are leaders like Fico who does not kind of find the European partners to be as convincing of an ally. You do have to keep in mind the other hand is Putin, though. So I don't think that could be a very stable alliance going forward anyways.
And the question is?
Well, like Mr. Łukasz just mentioned here, perhaps even if there's any way for the European Union to find a way to alleviate some of the stress that Slovakia is facing when it comes to energy prices, would that then become a leverage to perhaps beat them over the head if they go against the Union?
It doesn't. I don't think this is about the price of the gas. Actually, I think it's about the whole gesture. The Fico going to Moscow is about geopolitics. It's about relations between Russia and Russia diplomacy and Slovakia. I think Russian diplomacy really needed any European politician in Moscow right now, just before negotiating peace or ceasefire in Ukraine. And there might be totally different agenda than just gas price. As we mentioned, Trump will want to sell more cheap gas to Europe, and Europe can provide the gas and alleviate the cost, subsidize it, as we do in Poland for several years before peace government, and now Tusk government also subsidize energy. So it's not a problem of the gas or the price of the gas.
It's a problem of Mr. Fico. Before having just Russian gas, he had no problem. Now he has a problem, and he, as a head of government, must find a solution. And all from the point of view of, world economics, gas is only a product you can acquire everywhere. Yeah. So problem is how to solve this case for Fico, and that's why he goes to Moscow, to Brussels, to other partners, and he didn't expect such a pressure on him at the beginning of the year.
I would like to add just one last point regarding this, that we have to take into account that actually Russia's economy is smaller than Italy's. So if Slovakia is going to be picking sides, the European Union or the West versus Russia, I think that if they do think about the pocket, like it was said earlier that they want to think about money, they'll think about the European Union first, and an economy that's smaller than Italy's. So that's my 2 cents right there.
Right. I'm also looking at this and wondering if this is going to become a trend. Like he has mentioned earlier, we are seeing perhaps Austria taking another turn. But if the European Union argument is so convincingly strong, why would we see or even have to worry about countries like Austria or, let's say, what are the other countries, Hungary, running astray?
Well, this is an ongoing trend for many, many years, right? This populist trend has gone global, right? It's certainly not a acute issue. It's structural. We've seen it for the past over 10 years, this problem. So I agree, it's true that basically from one election to another, who wins in different countries, who will be a populist, far left, far right, we don't know. But the trend is a little bit worrying, right? Slovakia, Hungary, Austria, we'll see about elections in other countries in Europe just in the next couple of months. We'll see what's going to happen. Germany, France, we'll see, etc. But it is a good question why that is, right? Why are we seeing this ongoing populist trend? I think a lot has to do with certainly economics. Technology plays a big factor too here as well right now. Right? Information, all of that. But you're absolutely right. There's like a little bit of a domino effect that we're seeing. Will it be stopped right now? We don't know.
Last but not least, as rein it in, Łukasz, do you think that what we're seeing right now, because there is a little bit of debate of whether or not the Fico's action is actually seen as a popular one within its own country, within its own constituents, do you think that perhaps we're in a little bit of a bubble and not really understanding what the Slovakian people are thinking, or do you think that we will see a waning of Fico's popularity going forward?
I think that there is a tendency in countries like Poland to see such demonstrations as we saw in the video as too meaningful. I mean, their meaning is not that big. But as far as the word populist is concerned, I would be very, very careful with using that word, because how would you call a politician who makes a list of 100 promises in 100 days and then fulfills just 6 of them? Is he not a politician? 60. Is he not a populist?
60.
No, 100 promises for 100 days.
And fulfills 60.
No, not 60, 6, not 60.
Depending how you count it.
All right. We're veering into domestic politics. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for all your input and insight, and really appreciate the nuanced discussion from all sides of the aisle. Thank you guys so much. And meanwhile, thank you guys for watching this edition of Press Corner. For more news, update, and commentary, guys, please stay tuned to TVP World.